Ladies, gentlemen, or what have you, I'm Orion Lovell.
I'm Travis Mattingly.
And you're listening to Tooth and Nail, a monstrous podcast where we talk about monsters and things like video games and movies and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, tabletop games, perhaps?
Yeah, tabletop games especially. Only that. Forget all the other things I said. We're just doing tabletop.
Right.
So
we're changing the format right now, episode 1.
Boom, right in the center of it. So this time up, we got a little bit of Dark Souls the First coming in up to bat.
Are we talking about Dark Souls or Dark Souls Remastered?
Well, both, I guess.
Yeah, you're right.
You pedantic fuck. No, I don't know. We'll talk about the first. I actually haven't played the Remastered.
Oh, really?
No,
It's pretty much exactly the same aside from one bonfire.
So. Yeah, where is that bonfire? Because I've heard a lot of This is immediately we go off the rails. Welcome to Tooth and Nail, where we talk ostensibly about monsters, but really we just fuck around.
Yeah, we talk about whatever we goddamn please.
Yeah, you can't. You're not my dad. So about this bonfire, where is it located? Because I've heard a lot of talk about this bonfire and how it's not cool.
As far as I know, it's in the crypt, but I have not gotten to it in the remaster yet, so I'm not entirely sure.
Neither.
Supposedly, it's in the part right before Pinwheel.
Huh. I guess that's fair.
It's to make the run up to Pinwheel not suck, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, alright. Pinwheel's cool.
Yeah, sure. Right.
This is my bad segue into actually talking about the monsters in this game. So
the enemies in the Undead Asylum are cooler than Pinwheel, but we'll get to that.
You kind of said it like somebody else dubbed over the location. The enemies in the Firelink Shrine are also pretty cool.
You're on to me.
So the idea is, for this particular game, and I might change it up in the future, is we go level by level and talk about the enemies, the monsters they're in, their design, both in terms of artistic design and in actual game design, and how they interact with the levels and, how they make for fun video game time.
Yeah, or if they fail at making fun video game time.
Yeah, if they suck, we'll also, send them to the chopping block.
Yeah, we'll tear into Miyazaki, tell him he's terrible.
Yeah, suck on that, Miyazaki.
We love you, don't.
Yeah, no, please don't suck on it, unless it's my... So, starting off at the Undead Asylum, where your character has been thrown away as another member of the Undead.
Yeah, you start the game as... Well, you start the game in character creation, and you make the most passable human being you possibly can before you're suddenly turned into a corpse without any choice.
Yeah. Boom, there it is. Right on. And I kind of like the way that zombies are depicted in this game. They're a lot more mythical. Like, usually when you go with zombies, it's, very, you try to hit the visceral kind of, here are guts falling out, and...
Right, it's not gory.
Yeah, the enemies, the zombies in this game, the undead in this game are more like mummies, where they're mostly left intact, and they just kind of have like a receded, withered quality to them.
Yeah.
And it hits more of the mysticism of it. Zombies in this being more like magically based than trying to horrify you, right?
Yeah.
It's really, this game is like the most understated zombie game, It starts you off with the curse of the undead, but really it's... They're like trying to underplay, they're trying to like twist the genre so it doesn't feel like a zombie game at all.
Yeah, they're turning undead into kind of like a normalized thing. Like...
Yeah, in fact, like, there's a lot of weird correlation between undeath and zombie, like, zombification and mental health in this game. So, like, it's very telling that it's called the Undead Asylum as opposed to the Undead Prison, right?
Right, yeah.
And every time you run into a zombie, they're always cowering the corner or doing some other, what would be, stereotypically known as like crazy stuff.
Yeah, some inane, like, singular task that they do over and over, or...
Yeah.
Like the first couple guys that you come to when you come out of the cell. They're just standing there, not doing anything except facing a wall.
Yeah. Yeah. And you beat them up, because you're a monster.
They don't even fight back, because
Nope.
you're a monster.
I guess, fate worse than death. And, so the idea is they're undead, right?
Yeah.
When you eventually get to a bonfire, which, I mean, everybody knows Dark Souls, right? You go to a bonfire, you set it heals you and restores all the monsters in the area, right? Mm-hmm. So when you defeat these hollows, these zombies, do they just respawn with you? Is that the idea? Is like you're in control of everybody's rejuvenation?
Oh my god. I never thought about the meta-narrative of the bonfires.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of weird. I guess you could just, like, when you sit down at a bonfire, the screen wipes and everything gets all powdery. Maybe we can just pretend you just took, like, an 8-hour rest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I imagine that it's something along the lines of a prolonged meditation until everyone is alive again.
Yeah, and everybody just kind of gets up themselves. You walk through these claustrophobic halls of the asylum, and you run into these hollows. And they've got, like... So they, like I said before, they're all withered looking, like mummies. They've got these glowy red eyes, and glowy red eyes is, like, weirdly, the thing that keeps recurring in the enemy design in this game. There's just a lot of glowy red eyes.
Yeah, they show up all around.
I like it when it's in... I like when the pig has it later on.
I was gonna say, it's almost exclusively on the undead, but there is that pig.
Yeah, and like I think the Black Knights have them as well.
I don't think so.
Oh right, because the Black Knights are hollow. Let me double check.
I'm pretty sure it's just like a black void in their mask, but
No. But there are things that have red eyes that kind of, because that's what I thought at first too. I thought that the red eyes was signifying that all of these monsters were undead, but then I ran into something, and I can't remember what, that had red eyes that shouldn't. Oh, the demons. I think the demons have red eyes as well.
I
And
see.
those things ain't undead, but they come back too. I don't know, it's weird. The flow of time is convoluted, as the game reminds us, so maybe that could also be part of it.
Yeah, it's... If you want to simplify it to what it might actually be, it's the designers being like, I bet this would be scary if it had red eyes.
Yeah. And sometimes that works, right? Like, it's an instant signifier of something being aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So, like, unlike in, for example, bits of Bloodborne, where I think, some of the enemies kind of hide away, and it's difficult to tell at first, like with some of the, like with some of the hunters that litter around the area, it's difficult to tell who is immediately aggressive and who is not if you're like sneaking up all the time, which you typically are in these games.
Yeah.
So I think it's just an easy way to demonstrate, like, yep, this is an enemy. Of course, when you're fighting a fucking demon, the fact that it's a demon also kind of helps.
Yeah, odds are, if it's big and scary, it's probably an enemy.
Yeah. Yeah. So these hollows, they come up in all shapes and sizes. They've got flavors, like they've got archer flavor and sword flavor.
Delicious.
They got shield guy, the undead soldiers, which have shields and swords and like to team up on you. And as you continue through the level, you find these enemies start being rearranged in more difficult... So this is kind of... This is actually one of my favorite things about enemy design and level design in video games is the use of the kind of efficiency of using one monster and then just configuring it in different ways to make it harder and harder. So like you've got Archer Guy, and the first time you run into Archer Guy, he shoots one arrow at you and runs away, and it's not a big deal, and you murder him instantly. And then the next time you run into Archer Guy, he's covering a couple of other sword guys, and suddenly it's a lot more challenging, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna see that again and again in this game.
They can pretty much always overwhelm you with up to like 4 guys, because the strategic enemy placement in this is really good.
Yeah, and they like to do a lot of swarms, and this is kind of a swarmy enemy because, again, it's a starter kind of deal, so they don't hit very hard, but they do hit really fast and can swarm you.
Yeah. God forbid you don't notice the archer guy when you're fighting the sword guys, and you just take a stray arrow to the head.
Yeah, because then you get like a big funky animation. So you continue through the Undead Asylum, and actually the very first thing you do, the first kind of enemy proper you see, is the Asylum Demon. Which is this big, funky, kind of big-booted, winged thing carrying a big old bit of mace.
Yeah, he's stomping around right outside of a gate you can see, right outside of your cell.
Yeah, you see a pair of them patrolling, for these guys are the guardians of the Undead Asylum. And as soon as you break free of your cell, helped by a knight who dies, it's fine.
Tragedy.
Sadness. It's Dark Souls. If there's an NPC, it probably dies at the end of its story.
It's very true.
But you're given freedom, and you walk around and going into this bit of, I don't know, chapel, like main house thing. You walk by, and this Asylum Demon drops in on you, and it's a big old deal. And it's the first time, because the rest of the game leading up to it had been very quiet. It's the first time you're introduced to the bosses have boss music and are very intimidating kind of thing. And so it drops in.
And it comes at you fast and loud.
Yeah, and the music swells and brah, and it's all very much, and it's like, it's this weird sort of, you know, if we play the game that Dark Souls is kind of like a horror zombie game, this is the first jump scare, right?
Yeah.
But
I
like,
was scared.
Yeah, I was scared too. It's okay. It's dead now. So, like, the first time
when you enter the room, when you enter the room for the first time, it drops down and jump scares you, and all you have the first time you see it is just one tiny little broken shit sword.
Yeah. Unless you take a special little gift at the beginning of character creation, which are some fire bombs, and then you can kill it, and you get its big old mace, which you can't use for a billion levels.
You'll have in your inventory till the end of time.
And never ever use.
But if you don't take that special gift, you have your tiny little sword, which you can technically kill it with if you are patient and good enough, but it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So instead, you run off to the left where there's an open gate, and it's, I think, the only time where the game ever lets you run from a boss fight.
Yes. Excepting... Depending on how you feel about this, accepting Ceaseless Discharge, which we get to later.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So, 2 sort of occasions, but this is the only time that it comes in like a main...
Yeah.
Yeah, just like a main feature of the fight that it wants you to do.
Yeah, it is the critical path to haul ass. And let me tell you, the little gate thing, that is a tiny little thing. You don't notice that at first. That is,
sure don't.
They want you to get stomped on a little bit, and which is good, because, like, this is a game known for not pulling any punches. They want to make sure you know right off the bat that bosses don't fuck around.
Yeah. And so you run out through the gate, and you kind of go around and you interact with those hollows we talked about before, the archer that shoots you once and you get a shield, and then you get a sword, and you run your way around, and you find your way to the top of the boss arena, where, as you enter, there's your target, but he's below you, and it says, give him hell, and drop attack.
Drop attack. So it's another kind of way to configure the boss. I think that, aside from the little messages that tell you the controls, I think this is a pretty good tutorial kind of level. Because it demonstrates, through the enemy design, it demonstrates a couple of important things. For example, don't get surrounded, watch out for the ranged things, and bosses are scary and can come at you at any time, except for they never do and always have a gate, except for this one time.
Also, if you're in a boss arena, don't hesitate, because if you hesitate, you'll just get smacked off of the
little ledge. Yeah, I've never done that before. I've always been too horrified, and especially now that I know about it, I pretty much just do one continuous motion through the little mist gate and then drop immediately on it.
Well, the second time I went in, on my second little playthrough, I was like, oh, I want to get a good look at it from up here, because I've never taken a close look at it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of watching it, it's staring up at me, kind of roaring and making its noises in the music, and just suddenly it jumps super high, flap, flap, and just nails you off of the thing.
Pretty good.
And I was stunned, and then I died, because you take full fall damage if he knocks you off.
Oh, really?
So it's just like, don't hesitate.
Yeah, it's a pretty good little detail, and it's that kind of game to like, well, because it's funny too, because he has wings, so it kind of communicates to you that he could possibly do that. So I mentioned that this thing has a big old booty, which, you know, it's not news. Everybody knows about the Asylum Demon's big old booty.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, and I mentioned this once upon a time to you, but I do think that they gave him a big old booty on purpose, because the idea with this boss is you want to spend the entire time kind of dodging around it and sticking to its behind. And so I think, you know, in the same way that baboons have that big meaty red bum, I think they gave this thing a big old behind to kind of guide you towards wanting to smack at it.
Yeah, the booty had you like, whoa, so you gotta smack it.
Yeah, swiggity spooty is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, you stuff yourself up its ass, and eventually it dies. And you get souls. Hallelujah.
Oh.
And then a big giant raven carries you to the next area. To Firelink
now the
Shrine.
real Souls begins.
Yeah, well, the real Dark Souls. And Firelink Shrine is mostly a non-area. It's mostly there to be a little base for you, a little base of operations where all the NPCs eventually converge, and you got yourself a little home until you don't later on.
Yeah, and it's really cool that they have almost, I would say 70% of the game can be accessed with this as a central location.
Yeah,
like
the level design is really, really fucking good with this game. There's all sorts of shortcuts and back ways, and everything leads up on each other.
Yeah, you get dropped here, and suddenly you're like, oh, which way do I go? I see a staircase over there, a staircase behind me. Oh, there's a rotating staircase that goes down underneath this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And then it's just go, baby, go, and you find all these sorts of wonderful things. It's, you know, and again, this isn't news, but they kind of had to design the world this way because they, you know, you couldn't teleport between bonfires until later on. So you can't teleport between bonfires until later on in the game. In future games, they have it so that you can teleport between bonfires at any time. So they had to redesign the world differently. And I think, you know, I think the fact that you can't teleport between bonfires lends itself well to this really converging spirals, circles and circles kind of level design.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's something to be said for not necessary. It's not. It wouldn't be backtracking because it all just comes back around.
Yeah, it's less about redoing the same sections. It's more about finding the little crossroads, and then oh hey, I opened up a door and it led me back to this crossroad. It's never gonna like. I don't think the levels ever actively ask you to redo something or go through and reverse something that was, you know, something you've already succeeded at. The
only thing I can think of, I think, is Blighttown.
Yeah.
Because I think you do have to go back up through Blighttown to get out of Blighttown, which is part of why I hated Blighttown, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, but we'll get to that, because I think there's a key difference there. Well, a couple of key differences, but we'll get to it. For now, you go up towards the way the game wants you to go up, because if you don't, you get slapped around by a lot of horrible things.
You get stabbed by skeletons.
Yeah, they're skeletons. I mean, we could talk about skeletons if you want to talk about skeletons. They're
in the Fire Lake Shrine.
Yeah, in this list we're using at the good old Wikidot area.
Yeah.
They list the skeletons as being part of Firelink Shrine, which is technically true. So fuck it, we'll talk about skeletons.
They were the first things that I fought as soon as I got in the shrine, so like...
Yeah, they usually are the very first thing that you come across, and you're like, there's no problem. Skeletons, it's a level 1 monster in every other game, and then the skeletons fuck you up.
Yeah, they prove that you're not the only thing that can parry, and they just decide...
Yeah.
One of the first enemies that you meet in the brand new open wide world is an enemy that can parry you automatically and instantly stab you to death.
Yeah. To their credit, I mean, they give you like the really obvious stance change to know that they're parrying now.
I thought it was just a block stance.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, it is kind of defensive. They all have these falcons and scimitars.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because you don't really see those kinds of swords in the rest of the game. Kind of suggesting like maybe these are, wanderers from a far-off land in the same way that in Dark Souls 3, the Karthus catacombs are all skeletons from far-off lands.
Huh. Yeah, I guess so. I never really thought about how there's the only 2 times you ever really see scimitars and falchions are the skeletons and yourself if you pick that class.
Yeah, let's bury this in the sand right now. Is it falchion or falchion?
Falchion, I believe.
Falchion? Alright.
Yeah.
I apologize for the last minute of me saying it the wrong way.
It's okay. It's okay because it's such a hotly debated thing that I guarantee I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But
At what point did we all agree that it was scimitar instead of scimitar, also?
Oh god, don't even start with me.
There are weird names for swords.
It's a sword.
So there are skeletons. They rise up from the dead. You just see their little bones, and then they assemble themselves in kind of like
they lure you. They lure you with loot.
Yeah, they do. That is very true. This is one of the first times in the game where they pull that whole thing where, all the loot has this tantalizing, glowy sprite, and these skeletons will rise up because they're guarding this glowy loot, and then they, surround you and stab you to death. They do what comes natural.
And if you're like me and you're like, oh, I can just run past the skeletons, you get to the loot and suddenly there's giant skeletons.
Yeah, they got giant skeleton as well. It reminds me of Castlevania 64, where you fight a bunch of skeletons and then you fight giant skeleton. It's very similar. To those of you,
that one.
You astute listeners, it's very much like Castlevania 64, where you fight a bunch of skeletons and then big skeleton comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, y'all remember that classic Castlevania 64?
Classic Castlevania 64 big skeleton. Big skeleton also has a big falchion as well.
Oh, God, I would love that. I would love big falchion.
It's interesting because it is specifically listed as a giant skeleton. And I wonder, because you do find these things in the Tomb of Giants, and giants are like a big deal thing in Dark Souls. They are like their own race of giants and kind of a Nordic feel to them.
Yeah, but then we get into like the whole what does a giant's face look like thing. And
yeah, well I guess we can talk about that, because why not talk about it now rather than later. In Dark Souls 2, later on, alright, keep up, their giants have holes in their face. Whereas the giants in Dark Souls 1 have faces. And what the fuck, right?
Yeah, it's like... I don't know if it was like a decision that they made without Miyazaki to make giants weird faceless things, or if he was like, yeah, giant skeletons aren't actually giants, they're just big dudes.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think the fact that they have falchions when I believe giants in Dark Souls 2 don't.
Yeah, I think they use more European, like, English broadswords and stuff.
So I think this is like a specific breed of just big person, you know? Especially since there are giants in Anor Londo as well later on. There are the giant guys with spears and shields.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, there must just be, like, maybe, like, it's a Pokemon kind of thing where a Lordran giant is different from a Drangleic giant.
You know what? Maybe.
You know what I'm saying? Anyway, you kill them regardless, or they murder you because you're not supposed to be there. And you regroup and continue up the little path to Undead Burg.
The Burg.
Yeah, the Burg. Where you find more degrees of hollows as well. Typically, you know, more armored and shieldy ones. Along the way you run into a firebomb hollow.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's how they mix it up, because at this point they're banking on you being used to the regular hollows.
Yeah, so you charge a couple of them, and then all of a sudden you're on fire, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's my least favorite thing, honestly.
Yeah, I hate being on fire. It's my least favorite thing to be on.
It is like a great wake up call though. Like I think on the run up there is the one firebomb guy, and they do warn you, because he does just at nothing throw a firebomb and it explodes in front of you. But if you're like me and you don't pay a lot of attention,
yeah,
it's not a good enough warning.
Yeah, you're right. I guess they do give you a little bit of lead to change your tactics.
It's kind of like the thing that we like so much, where an enemy plays its cards in front of you before you fight it.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Yeah, it do. Yeah.
You know how it do.
Yeah, I do know how it do. And they know how it do, too. So, you're fighting zombies that cover each other with firebombs, along with the staple of sword and axe. They got axes now, and I think those guys do more damage, or possibly they don't. It's hard to say.
I'm sure they do. They two-hand a big ol' axe. I'm sure they do more damage.
You get to a point in Dark Souls where you just don't get hit by these things anymore. Except for when you get cocky and they swarm you.
That's true. You know what? You got me there.
Yeah. You run into a little rat as well. Not a little rat. It's technically a small undead rat, but a small undead rat is the size of like a dog.
Yeah, it's a rodent of unusual size.
Yeah. Rouse. So you continue up to the Burg. You run into briefly the Drake, the Undead Burg Drake.
Yeah.
There's a better name. The Hellkite dragon. There we go. That's what I'm looking for.
The colloquial term, the big fucking dragon.
Yeah.
That just comes out of nowhere.
The BFD.
Yeah.
It comes out of nowhere, stomps on you. We'll talk about that more in a second as well, because it's mostly it's the second jump scare, right? And it's kind of neat because what happens. This is, you know, their long game with their mist walls. Is the first time you run into a boss, you just open a door and it's there. The second time you run into that same boss, you go through a mist door and it's sitting below you, so it gives you a second to like regroup and be like, oh, I'm fighting a boss. And then, of course, if you take too long, it smashes you. And then this time, there's a little mist gate, and if you go through it, you're expecting a boss, but you don't see it. You just see more level, and so you're like, oh, it's just more level, and then you go continue, and the dragon foot comes down.
And surprise!
Hey! Pocket dragon. And then it flies off, and we deal with it in a moment. Instead, we continue on into more soldiers, one of which has a crossbow. They do the thing where now they're covering each other at various degrees, so now there's a undead soldier with a crossbow, but he's way off in the distance, so you can't kill him instantly.
Yeah, and other than that, there's nothing, like, super remarkable about these soldiers. It's just the game starting to give you more tactical enemies that you have to deal with, such as two men with swords and shields right next to each other that just don't like to turn around.
Oh, you mean the spear guys?
Or spears and shields, sorry.
Those guys suck. They teach you how to use your kick, if you can think to use your kick, which is only useful in this scenario.
Yeah, which is not me.
Yeah.
I'm the one that locks on and runs in a half circle around them for a while until they
Eventually that works.
Them.
Like I've done the same.
You gotta wait, but it works.
Yeah. So you continue along, and there are more guys with firebombs. Eventually, you take a little turn, and there is, standing at the end of this long hallway, a big ol' black armored knight.
Yep, sure is.
And this is like, so there's a little subset in Dark Souls there, these mini bosses that don't respawn when you kill them. This is like because this is like an advanced enemy that you're not supposed to run into. They are very fast, they're very aggressive, they chase you down all the way, pretty much wherever you want to go except for out of the level, and even then possibly still out of the level. That might be fun to try.
Yeah, if you bait them enough, they'll probably, like, take a couple steps out.
Yeah, but these are the Knight's Retainer of the god of the sun, Gwyn, who, upon relinking the fire, incinerated his knights, and now they walk as hollow armors, wandering the world, doing the best they can with what they have, okay?
Yeah, basically Gwyn was like, I want all of my knights to be mini-bosses, and he just...
Yeah.
Slammed his sword into the ground and created a bunch of mini-bosses.
And lo he said, and lo it was. Should we talk a little bit Should we talk about that little intro cutscene? There's a little intro cutscene where it describes the world as being this gray, vast land of arch trees and everlasting dragons, which, like, I'm down with an everlasting dragon.
Yeah, and then humans came and...
Yeah, and...
They fucked it up.
Yeah, and they fought off the dragons by using these lords' souls that gave these people godlike abilities, and there are a bunch of them, and it's basically just, like, the point of the cutscene is just to show you the things that you're going to be messing up in the future. In that way, it can be said that this game is also like a God of War game.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
I never really thought about it like that.
Yeah, you're just going around messing up the things that created the world.
The one thing I wanted to say about Black Knights, were that, yeah, they do follow you everywhere, but also the thing that I told you about last time that you learned about, where nowhere is safe, even the bonfire.
Yeah.
The one time where you're like, oh, God, this is something I need to run to the bonfire and save myself from. You sit down, you have a nice little sip of the health bar, and then suddenly you stand up, and the Black Knight did not respawn when you sat at the bonfire, and instead it is there to kill you.
Aha!
They don't reset with bonfires, which is, I think, whether or not there's a lore implication to that, I think is great game design, because it's horrifying.
It is. It's jump scare number the 3rd. Because all you want to do is get away from these guys. They're very pointy, these pointy boys.
Oh, yeah.
They got themselves a bunch of horns and spires all sticking out all sorts of directions. So they got
Collars of spikes.
Yeah, they've got like this nice spiky collar thing going on. They do look kind of regal and like, you know, they belong as retainers for a god. Like a god king.
Yeah, for sure they look out of place in this little shanty town.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely do. I don't really have too much trouble with them anymore. You can parry them, so it's like not a big deal. Once you get parries, Black Knights are pretty much the easiest enemies in the game. Or like if you're even moderately good at backstabs. Basically what I'm saying is get good or you monster, get off the show.
No, I still every time I'm like, yeah, I've got this, and they wreck me and I'm like, ugh.
Well, they're still like really big and cool, and just because, you know, you get your ass kicked so handily by them in the early game that by the time you're murdering them en masse, you just feel good because of vengeance.
Yeah, and you forget what it feels like to be at the beginning of the game, and then when you go there again in the beginning, you're like, I can do this, and it just kills you, and you're like, alright.
Yeah. So we continue up, past the Black Knight guy, into our second boss. There's a brief little trap with a Donkey Kong barrel that's on fire. You get past that or you don't. I didn't the first time.
I don't think I've ever come to this place and not been hit by that barrel.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I don't even know if it's that I forget every time or if it's just like I can roll through it, but like I never can.
That barrel. God of men.
It's my arch nemesis.
Yeah. So you continue up with this big old tower, and in the non-burning barrels, you find a little crystal lizard, if you think to check. I think they make it so that, I mean, like, who wouldn't, right? It's so fun to smash barrels because they explode into 1,000 little pieces.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good old time.
Fun with physics.
Yeah. It's the closest thing to finding stuff in the barrels as well, because, you know, in another game, maybe you would find, I don't know, coins or whatever. In this game, you find crystal lizard, which are like these little turtley, crystal-backed, I believe they have 8 legs? No, they have 6 legs? No, they have 8 legs. I can't remember.
I didn't know they had more than 4.
Yeah, they have like, I want to say they have 6 legs. No, they have 8 legs. 8 legs.
Oh.
Yeah, they have
Jesus.
8 legs. And they make a little sparkly sound as well as like a little detection thing.
They book away from you as fast as possible.
Oh,
you
man.
chase them down and kill them.
No, or you don't. Because let me tell you, the last time this last run through I did, I used a pair of daggers, because I've never done a dagger run, and I cannot hit them for shit.
Well, the animations for daggers in Dark Souls 1 are very swing high.
Yeah, they very are. They even, like, curve upwards. Like you're doing a little smiley face like Zorro. You know, Zorro who does a lot of smiley faces.
Should have tried the jump attack. Jump attack might have worked.
Yeah, but it's so hard to aim, and they're very quick, and they fade very quickly because they run away and then disappear. I think they're cute. I want, like, a little pillow.
Oh, man, I would die for a little crystal lizard plush. That'd be adorable.
I bet you can find one. I bet.
Yeah, but it's got a sparkle.
Well, you could, I don't know, polish it. Polish that pillow. Anyway, there's the crystal lizard, and then behind that crystal lizard, there's another fog gate, and you go through that fog gate to find another seemingly empty bridge. Spoilers, there are archers behind you and a thing up ahead of you. And
yeah, so this is the other time I never knew there were archers behind me the first time I played the game.
Yeah, did you get shot in the head?
I got shot, and then I was like, well, that was weird. Where'd that come from? And I never cared to, like, find out.
Oh, good. Just like Dark Souls teaches you.
Yeah, trust me, my first playthrough, I was a very bad student.
Yeah. I think those archers are actually supposed to help you in a roundabout way, because they let you know that there is a big old platform to go on at the top of the tower. And that big old platform is going to be the thing that helps you with this fight against the Taurus demon. Which kind of, it jumps down on you and rushes at you on this tiny little bridge like a
roars
bull
and moves
in a
big old minotaur demon.
Yeah, like a bull in a bull shop. So you
bowling for soup. Okay.
Gold bullion. That's all I had.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Bull puns are hard to come by.
Yeah, it's a big old bull thing. It's like a Minotaurus kind of deal. It's got red eyes as well. It's got a human shape. And you notice that a lot of these early bosses, and, you know, most of the Dark Souls bosses in general, have human shapes because it makes them easier to read from an animation standpoint. For a game like Dark Souls, where it is incredibly important to not get hit as often as possible, it's very important to have enemies that you can understand what they're going for as soon as possible, that telegraph their attacks properly. So you find...
readability.
Yeah, so you find a lot of enemies that have human shapes, because humans are easy to read. We just got our arms and our legs and our vestigial tail. Right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So, it charges at you. The idea is, you know, once you get the hang of it, and for whatever reason, these first 3 bosses, they all kind of want you, or they all teach you to use your falling attack just in various ways. So, before you got the drop on him, this time he's got the drop on you, and you do your plunging attack, you do your fall damage, you do your falling attack on him. And you just keep doing that. until he dies.
I think you only really have to do it, like, once to get a good advantage.
Yeah.
Depending on how much of a power gamer you are, you can kill the Taurus Demon in, like, 4 hits.
Yeah, and that was another thing, because Dark Souls 1 came out a while ago, and we've since had a lot of other games that have really tough bosses with a lot of HP. It just felt so breezy and nice to go back and find these monsters that have like 1,000 health apiece.
Yeah, it's really cool to have boss monsters that you can kill easy, but that can kill you easy.
Yeah, and that's how I think I like my balance in a game. It's very, and this is a weird thing to bring up, but it's like in Dishonored. The way I like to play Dishonored is to have it set so that you can kill everything in about 2 hits, but everything can kill you in about 3 hits.
Yeah.
So it's like
the ideal difficulty.
Yeah, it's very quick. And that's a good old time for this guy. Whatever my name is.
Who am I?
I don't know. So you kill the thing, and it dies. You can get it to jump off the bridge that you're on. I swear I've done it. I can't do it reliably, but it's pretty fun and neat.
Yeah, it's definitely happened to me. I've never made it happen, but it has happened to me.
Yeah. You continue onwards through the bridge, where you meet a beloved character called Solaire. But more importantly to the content of this, well, hold on. Fuck it, we'll go off the rails for a second. I really thought the first time that Solaire was a big ol' enemy. Because he's standing
you cut Solaire?
No, I didn't cut him. I snuck up to him, and I was about to backstab him, and then I got the little speak prompt. But the first time I was like, he's like a reverse Black Knight. He's gonna murder me.
The White Knight.
But no, he's a good old boy until he goes crazy later on, which isn't really a spoiler, as again I mentioned, most things in this game, their stories end with either dying or going crazy.
Yeah, there's I thought there's a path where he doesn't die, right?
Yes. Because
I believe so.
I think you can summon him in for the last boss.
Oh, that'd be pretty freaking dope. I kind of want to just do that, have Solaire Bud.
Yeah, it's pretty good. There's this weird recurring theme of, like, friendship and jolly cooperation in these games that I really like. And that's why I always Sunbro. I always join the Covenant, the little group. The community of people that help each other out by summoning themselves, or by placing... Oh my god, this is not in the scope of what we need to talk about. But, like, there's a little group of people that will do co-op and help you kill bosses, and that's my favorite group to be a part of, because I like being a good person.
Yeah, it's the literal light in the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, they're good guys. Those guys I'm a part of. So you continue on, in the opposite direction of Solaire, and boom! Fire from above. And they don't really telegraph it very well. You know, there are
3 knights.
Yeah, there are a bunch of hollows on a bridge, and you're like, I'm gonna go kill those hollows. A bridge full of loot. But I guess, you know, if you keep a sharp eye, you'll notice that the bridge is singed.
That's the thing that I don't buy, because, like, I keep a fairly sharp eye when I'm playing games, but, like, so much of Dark Souls is... everything is broken and shitty looking.
Right.
That, like, a few scorch marks on the ground does not a dragon indication make.
Yeah, I think it is a stretch. I definitely, the first time I saw it, I was not like, oh, the dragon's gonna come down. I probably didn't even register it.
But I'm not the type to get mad about it, because I thought it was cool. But
no, well, it doesn't kill you either, you know? Unless you haven't healed and you're still battle-worn. It doesn't... typically kill you. It gives you just enough health to get into safety a little bit farther the way down the bridge. But, and I feel like we didn't actually say this out loud, but the fire comes down because our dragon friend from earlier swoops on in. And is a thing. It's now just a permanent fixture. Hello, this is my bridge, this is my dragon.
He's the protector. He kills those enemies for you and gives you free souls.
Yeah, and this is like jump scare number 4. The second jump scare using the same dragon. because it swoops in, you just killed the boss, you feel great, and then it sets you on fire.
Yeah, but now you get like a real look at it, and it's very unsettling.
Yeah, it's really pokey. You got a lot of spines on that boy.
He's got a lot of spines going back, and he's got a lot of face spines.
Yeah.
One real long nose spike.
Yeah, real pointy. I noticed, because it's the first thing you notice, because its foot is the first thing that it shoves in your face. I noticed it has like a raptor claw kind of thing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and I kind of like the fact that it looks like a dinosaur, because it matches the idea of these dragons being kind of literally prehistoric, like before history, being everlasting. Fighting it is not something you should do at this point.
No, not at all.
No. It shoots...
If you're gutsy, you can... if you're gutsy and have a big sword, you can lure it down onto the bridge and attempt to cut it a bunch, but it's not recommended.
Yeah, it gets mad if you just kind of stick around on its bridge and then it attacks you properly.
Yeah.
Also, you can... So, firstly, you can cut off its tail for a weapon. It's the first enemy in the game where you can do this. And it's super helpful. It's called the Drake Sword. It does a lot of damage. It doesn't really... The game doesn't really ever tell you that you can do this. It just kind of happens, and you kind of guess the enemies that you can do it to.
Yeah, I was under the impression that you could only get it by shooting the tail.
No, I think you can cut it off as well. He might not be able to...
I know that now, actually, after doing a little bit of research today, even. In the video I was watching, he did the thing where he lured it onto the bridge, and all he had was his Black Knight sword that he got from killing the Black Knight, and he chopped off the tail in 2 hits.
Yeah. Well,
so, like, that's super cool. I didn't know you could just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about them not ever saying that you can cut off the tails of things?
I think that the gargoyles should have been before the dragon if they wanted to make it such a big thing, because the gargoyles indicate it so well.
Yeah, they do have axes on their tails.
Putting something before them that, with no indication that you can do it, seems a little cheap.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that you're not supposed to fight it now.
Yeah, but the thing you get for cutting off its tail is basically useless by the time you would know to get it, right?
Yeah. I guess you see it dangling, right? So there's the bridge where above which the dragon sits, but you can go into the under bridge where there are some hollows and you can see its tail dangling above you. Kind of like, come get me. You know how cats are?
I dare you to shoot me.
Oh, you can't touch this. And it's got like a little nubbin at the end, like a little pointy nubbin, like a little
it's
target.
Like a big target.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is a game that kind of prides itself on it not telling you things.
Yeah, that's true.
It's very much about just like, oh, I wonder if this works. Oh, something cool happened. And remember, like, this is, of this generation, the first game to really do something like that. Right? This was at a time where everybody was terrified that you'd miss something in your game.
Yeah, that's true.
It's just cool and it boggles my mind, and I don't know, good on them for doing something like that. Because, prior to that it was all, you'd have to go back to like Zelda and retro games to see that sort of thing. Like Super Nintendo Zelda. You continue along, probably not killing the dragon, or possibly forcing it to run away, because if you go past it on the top of the bridge to where the little section of church that it's guarding is, it'll just fly away, and I'm not sure you can get it back.
Yeah, you can.
Oh, you can?
Yep, you just have to go to a bonfire from before that area and come across the bridge again, and it flies back down.
Oh, alright, well, never mind then. In the underbridge, this is where you run for the first time into actual rats. Like actual undead rats. This time for real.
You run past a couple undead guys on a ledge that is like, kick me off the ledge, please.
Yeah, and then you do.
And then you walk into a room with a bunch of poisonous rats that are just really unpleasant.
Yeah, they're super gross. They got weird mange. They're undead, right? So they're like zombie rats. They got wounds and stuff all over them.
Scabby rats.
Yeah, they're gross. And they do poison damage.
And poison at this stage in the game is devastating.
Yeah. It's weird. It's another thing that the game doesn't really discuss. It just like, you have your little resistance meter, and then once the damage overcomes the resistant meter, then it ticks down the damage. It's confusing.
Yeah, I remember the first time that I got hit and the meter showed up. I thought I was already poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't communicate until you are poisoned that you are poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting choice. I wonder why they did that. I guess it becomes like a race against time sort of thing. It gives you a bit of a little margin of error, so that if you see, oh, this thing does poison or this thing does bleeding, it gives you a chance to step back, regroup the best way you can, and prepare for that.
Yeah, in retrospect, I love it because it gives you a lot more like skipping a little bit ahead with curse.
Yeah,
it gives you a lot more like, oh god, because you know it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah. They drop humanity, these rats do.
Yeah, very confusingly.
Yeah. I suppose, well, like, they say, in thine lore, they say that humanity is just the source of all life. So I guess rats included. But it's just, it's weird. It's weird, okay?
It's a weird translation where you can't have humanity be named soul, because souls is already a thing.
Yeah. So you continue up, and there is and this is actually, I think now properly we get the title card of the Undead Parish. Am I right? I think so. Yeah, this is when the Undead Parish thing comes in properly.
Oh, yeah. Like right after you come up and hit the bonfire and they have the gate open and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you continue up, and there's another Black Knight, this one with a greatsword. This one is kind of troublesome because everything is very claustrophobic and tight, and he's got a lot of range. So
yeah, he's a bully.
Yeah, it's a problem. And, you go up, and it's this long, very narrow staircase, and you spend the entire time being like, oh god, what's up there? Oh god, what's up there? And then you get up there, and it's horrifying. So pretty good.
If you get lucky, and it's kind of funny, there's a spot on the tower where he can fall off.
Oh, really?
Because you can fall off too. So if you jump off and you manage to survive, if he's mid-attack animation to follow you, he also falls off.
Yeah.
And it gives you a big opening to kill him.
Yeah. And then you run into my favorite, the big pig.
Yeah, big pig.
Yeah, armored porker. If he was Zelda, he'd be like Porcio, armored, death-dealing...
Piggly.
Piggly. Yeah. Yeah. And so, these things have got to be undead as well. They're big pigs, right? So let me just make sure everybody gets this. They're gigantic pigs. They've got
large
armor.
Swine.
Yeah, they're huge pigs. They've got armor on everywhere except for their bum.
Yeah, very specifically the center of their bum.
Yeah. And they've got to be undead, right? No, they don't respawn. But who knows what?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I my brain says yes, they have to be undead because they've got the weird glowing red eyes, and it's just their mannerisms are very aggressive undead mannerisms. But at the same time, they don't respawn.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe you just got them on their last undeath cycle, where now they've just gone hollow as dust in the wind. Also, they have a pig. They got the pig battalion.
Yeah, it's implying there is some sort of armada of pigs out there that just...
They got pig unit.
Because this armor is, incredibly well made and absolutely made for the pig. So,
Yeah. Those pig lads. Up down in the 45th Division.
Yeah, just imagine Gwyn's army of, Black Knights riding armored pigs.
Pretty good. I like that thought. I like it. I like it a lot.
We need fan art of that.
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yeah. So please. So the way they want you to kill this pork guy is they want you to make some bacon. They want you can find an alluring skull, which is like a little, come here. It's a coquettish little bit of bone that you throw down and stuff goes to it. And the idea is you want to throw it in a fire, and then the pig will go up into that in flames, and then you get yourself a nice roast dinner.
Yeah, which I didn't even think of. That's genius.
I didn't think about it either. I just did the thing where, because that's the way they want you to do it. The way I did it was, I just stepped out of its range continuously until it turned around and went back and showed me its unprotected little bum, and then I stabbed it.
Yeah, and then went elbow deep.
Yeah, elbow deep.
Yeah.
Got my hand in some pig ass.
It's very unsettling. There's so many things wrong. Like, I'll backstab any enemy in this game, but, like, there's a point that I feel like that crosses...
Yeah, well, it's the point where you anally sodomize. Anally sodomize is the point where you sodomize pig monsters.
It's like, it crosses my line.
I feel like this isn't as complex as... I will do backstabbing, but I will not forcibly sodomize something with a bit of steel.
It doesn't sound complex, like, in theory, but in practice, it's the same.
These are the hard questions. So you continue past the sodomized corpse of your pig boy. And you're fighting hollows all along the way, of course. And eventually you run into a different kind of undead called a Balder Knight. Which is kind of like the midpoint between a Black Knight and a Hollow Knight. They're kind of like quicker. They've got rapiers and they've got side swords, which are just thin swords. And they can parry you just like the skeletons can, which, you know, they change their stance and the whole thing.
Yeah, I think only the rapier ones can parry you.
Yes, because the side sword guys have shields. I think you're right. Yes.
I can't remember if the rapier ones have bucklers, but it doesn't matter. The side sword ones have big shields.
No, they might have bucklers. I can't remember. Because the stance is them changing the way their sword sits. So I can't remember if they have bucklers or not. They might. I don't know. They might.
Not super important, but it's interesting because I feel like the side sword ones are way easier to deal with, and it might be because of the parrying thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. They drop a lot of stuff. I don't know. These guys, they're armored knight kind of guys. They have their little helmet thingies, their beavers up, raised permanently, which looks kind of dumb to me.
Yeah, they're the first enemy that you can farm gear from where the gear is better than your gear.
Yeah, and they have some upgrade materials as well.
Yeah, because, like, all the other hollows and soldiers, they drop their gear, but it's all just decrepit, heavy, bad stuff.
Please, give me another waistcloth.
Oh my god. But then the Balder Knights give you their gear, and it's good.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, I can get good things from enemies?
Yeah, it kind of makes me want a game where you can, like, bank your loot drops.
Yeah.
You know, like how in Fallout 4 you can do that with criticals.
It's like, I want loot this time.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
That would be pretty good. I don't like farming for things. Again, not news, but...
Yeah, it's just, like, as long as the drop percent is, like, 20%, I'm usually fine. But...
Yeah.
Because you gotta, like, grind experience sometimes anyways, so might as well do both.
Yeah. It's notable that you find these guys usually in hallways. 'Cause, I don't know, it kind of makes it feel more like a fencing match.
Yeah, they feel more like duels than most of the other regular enemies do.
Yeah. Well,
they don't feel as much like duels as Black Knights do, but...
Yeah, well, I think part of that is because you find them in these tight hallways where you can't get around them and roll around very much. It becomes very much like attack, parry, attack, parry, attack, parry, you know?
Yeah.
There's another version of them, which is like a big old version, called a Tower Knight or a Heavy Knight or
I think Heavy Knight is the one that they chose as the official name for this game.
Yeah, but if this the list that we're using, there are others, you get different, depending on who you ask, you get different things. They're these big old guys. They've got big old shields, and...
Yeah, it's the first time that you walk into a room. They are more intimidating to me than Black Knights, but they are less difficult to kill.
Yes. Yeah. It's fun. Well, this is another kind of giant. Maybe they're just big, but these are definitely undead.
I think they're just big, because Black Knights are also big, and I think these guys are just also big.
Yeah. I think they're just big guys.
But they're wearing platform armored boots.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just three guys on each other's back.
Yeah, he's like the size of two men, and he has a big old mace and a big old shield, and he uses Estus, which, for the most part, I don't think any other enemy has so far.
No, well, yes. So the undead enemies will often, if you get them down, their health low enough, they'll run away and heal with Estus Blast.
You might not see it, though, because usually you kill them pretty fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at this point in the game, like, you probably don't do enough damage to kill this guy crazy fast, so you'll probably see him use the Estus. Yeah. And it was the first time I had ever seen an enemy do it.
It's cool. It adds another level of like, oh god, I gotta go kill him or interrupt the animation.
Yeah.
They also...
I kind of wish he respawned, honestly. I wish he respawned.
I think there might be one that respawns. Maybe not. No, yeah, because he won't respawn. But there's another one in Sen's Fortress that will respawn, that you can fight as many times as you'd like.
Yeah, I wish he respawned at this point, because like there isn't enough practice fighting big guys early on, and I think it would do to have this guy who's like a medium difficulty big guy, just as like a little bit of practice.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. He's guarding something, which is why he's there. He's like a mini-boss. He doesn't respawn when you kill him. They're from this sort of... they're from a far-off land that have ventured here to find the cure to their undead nature, which is why they're here at all. But they have, like, this kind of traditional European, sword and sorcery kind of feel. In a separate little tower, if you continue on, you find a blacksmith, firstly, and more importantly, you find what is called a Titanite demon. And these guys, this one isn't the worst thing to fight, but you run into them later on, and they are problematic. And they're basically like these half-formed statue things. I actually really like the design. They've got horns, and they're missing one of their legs, and long tails, and they have this giant pole arm kind of thing that matches their horns.
Yeah, and at first glance you'd think that they are like headless statues, but in fact, instead of a head, they have a big old Titanite slab on top. Yeah,
and Titanite is like a kind of metal. These things are like formed of Titanite or something like that. I think I looked up the lore. There was something like, they arose from these Titanite slabs when the nameless blacksmith deity passed, which is kind of cool.
Right.
So it's weird because they are called demons. They're even called demons in Japanese, but they're not what demons are. So demons are a thing in the same way that giants are a thing. Demons are a thing in this, and demons are supposed to be like monsters born out of this bed of chaos that we find later on. But,
yeah, and the Titanite demons are their own separate thing. They might as well have been called Titanite angels. They aren't really related.
Yeah, what the hell is up with that? 0 out of 10, unplayable.
Yeah, get on it. Get on it, Miyazaki.
Yeah, get some mods up in there. I don't know. So they shoot lightning at you. They have a lot of range. They jump on you. They make you sad.
I think they're very hard. I don't know. Some people think they're easy. I think they're very hard.
I think they get very hard. This one that you can kind of practice on, I don't have too terribly much trouble with. It helps.
The only time I think he's easy is if I've got a huge sword. That's it.
Yeah. Well, that's your kind of modus operandi, is just take off all your clothes and rush at it with a big old sword.
Yeah, it works.
It does work. I've seen it do miracles. It helps that you have stairs up in this arena that you fight him in, because it only swings its big club thing, its catch pole. It only swings it horizontally. So if you're just raised above it, it can't hit you.
I didn't know that. I thought it had an overhead attack.
It does. Well, it can jump on you.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But for the most part, that's a good way to dodge its primary attack. So you kill it and return back to where you fought the giant tower knight, where you find a fun little chap called the Channeler.
Oh boy, the Channeler.
Which are kind of like people snatchers. They run around, they serve the bidding of Seath the Scaleless, which is this dragon who betrayed all the other dragons to side with the humans. And he has these weird, dancy little guys that help do his bidding, and most of that bidding is finding princesses.
The Channeler is surrounded by just the basest, most hollow soldiers. No armor, little crap weapons, and you're like, oh, well, this will be fine. And then the Channeler buffs them all with a dance, and suddenly it's not fine.
Yeah, it stops being fine real quick. And I love the dance that he does, where he just, like, thrusts his staff up into the air and, like, kicks out his legs. Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
It's a really... Bringing it back, it's a really, like, Legend of Zelda enemy.
Like, yeah. And so, like, its clothing that it has, it reminds me of Wind Waker. It has all these swoops and eye patterns on it. These things, they actually have 6 eyes on their helmets. And it becomes this thing that is continued on in the rest of the games, where stuff with 6 eyes are servants to the dragons. Yeah, so he does a little dance. He's positioned around all these hollows that swarm you, now buffed by his little war dance.
Yeah.
And it is, I don't know, kind of silly. I like his little dance.
It's silly. It's the fact that it can catch you so off guard with how silly it is right away. You're like, what is even happening? And then suddenly there's 12 undead on you.
Yeah, well, I heard once upon a time that Miyazaki read a lot of 80s choose your own adventure books back in the day and took a lot of inspiration from them. And so now there is that kind of blend of 80s weird silliness going on, which I like quite a bit. So you continue along, and you find yourself face to face with another boss gate containing the Bell Gargoyles. Which also have this sort of, like, swirling Zelda-y quality to them.
Yeah, they're very decorative.
Yeah, they are very decorative. In fact, their armor sucks because of it. They have this sense, all of their stuff is supposed to be decorative. So all of the weapons that you can pick up, their shields and whatnot, are supposed to be made of cheap copper and that sort of thing. They kind of look like Monster Hunter monsters to me.
Yeah, I could see it. It's
something with their mouths. They have big old fangy mouths.
Yeah, it's their heads. Their heads are like there's a lot of like spikes, there's points, there's just like a lot of swirls, you're right. There's a difference because you're so used to like just zombie dudes, and like even the pig is like, it's just a pig wearing armor. But then, or the Tauros demon, it's just a minotaur. And then you get to the Bell Gargoyles, and suddenly there's these copper stone gargoyles with halberds and axe tails and swoopy faces and crazy mouths.
Yeah, they got crazy mouths. And they breathe fire out of those mouths.
Yeah, they sure do.
Which sucks, because you're on a rooftop and there's not a lot of space.
God forbid you roll off the rooftop.
Which I've done many times.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Area denial by the gargoyles is some of the worst things when it leaves you with nowhere to go but off the roof.
And then they fucking double down, and another one swoops down when you've got the first one to half health. And
suddenly there's double fire breath.
Yeah, well, I think the way so they can both breathe fire, but one, like, exclusively breathes fire, and the other one mostly uses its physical attacks. They have axe tails, as we mentioned before, which is kind of if there's an argument to be made that the game points you towards cutting off tails, it would be that they have actual weaponized tails.
That one does, and the other one, his tail is already cut off.
Yeah, one's missing a tail.
Yeah.
So you can't take both their tails, you tail fiend.
So you look at it and you're kind of like, wow, he has an axe on his tail, and the other one's just cut off, and you're like, well, could I do that?
Yeah.
It's not that hard of a fight once you... Like, the first time you come in, you're probably overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Because fire breath gargoyles, it's a lot. And they fly, and it's hard. They have a lot of reach. But much like the other early bosses, they don't have a lot of health.
No, they don't have a lot of health. And you can summon in a bunch of people, even offline. You can summon in a couple of NPCs to help you along.
Yeah. Solaire, at least.
Yeah.
So...
They have a cutscene as well, which is pretty rare. And, and because these are kind of a big deal fight, so... At the very beginning of the game, you're given this quest to go ring the 2 bells of awakening, and these are the guardians of one of those bells. I think, the fact that they have a cutscene, it pretty much, it's a good conveyor that this is a big deal fight.
Yeah, it's a very swoopy cutscene. Because it shows you up there, and it gives you, like, the cinematic angle of it breaking out of its, like...
Yeah.
Position on the tower and
getting its feathers all cleaned and stone free.
Weird stone feathers.
Yeah, and these guys, they're just like defenders. They don't really have the game doesn't give you much about them. They're just sort of defenders of the important things in life, like gods and...
Which is, honestly, I think, for the best, because if there was some big elaborate backstory for these gargoyle defenders, I don't know, I think it would have been too much.
Yeah, probably.
Because they're statues on a building. Like, the history of the gargoyles is that they are on the building.
I didn't mean, like, I don't want to listen, I don't care that they have a wife. I was just curious, because there's something interesting to be said about, like, who built them and where they come from. Because there's this weird kind of... there's a significant amount of construct enemies. So there, you fight a golem later, and you don't really ever hear about who is the artificer responsible for making these things,
I guess that's true. There's a lot we just assume. Like, we just take... We're like, oh yeah, there's gargoyles.
Yeah. So yeah, you murder those Bell Gargoyles, you ring yourself a bell, and I think that's where we're going to end it for now.
Yeah.
With one Bell of Awakening awokened. One Bell of Awakening awokened.
One awakening belled.
One belled, comma, awakening. Thank you so much for listening to our nonsense. Thank you so much for listening to Tooth and Nail. Until...
Yeah, if you learned something, let us know. If you didn't learn anything, let us know.
Yeah. I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed.
Yeah, I had a good time.
Yeah. Until next time, keep an eye out for everlasting dragons.
Yeah, watch out. Dragons will swoop in, you never know.
Yeah. Breathe fire on you.